I did want to talk about the most is about the fiber arts community, in particular the knitting and crochet community on Instagram. And I used to really like the community. Like I still do appreciate the community like a lot. Like I really do love a lot of the people who I've met, in these past 2 years that I've been on Instagram. Everyone is just so supportive, so sweet, always commenting such nice things and like sharing, my work and others' works onto their stories. And it's just really comforting being in a space where, you can share your work, and then that there will be, like a good handful of people or a good number of people who really enjoy like seeing your work, and they always, like I said, always have something really nice to say. But of course, since this sort of thing is relative, there's always the negative side of things, where even if you're not asking for criticisms, people will still give it to you, and some people will say like mean things, and you just have to like kind of like deal with it, because it's just something that does happen. And I'm lucky because this hasn't happened to me a lot. But yeah, and criticisms are fine, but when I think of art, if somebody just wants to like share something for the sake of sharing it, like I don't necessarily think that they're asking for like these unsolicited criticisms. Like they're not asking you to critique their work, like sometimes people just like sharing it. They don't really like they don't really need that sort of thing. And I know a lot of the arguments towards this is like, well, why are you putting it online? Why are you sharing your work online? Like if you don't want people to see it, if you don't want people to comment like these mean things about it, or like give you these types of criticisms, then don't put it online. But I just really hate that argument. It just shuts down like people who just, even if they're very vulnerable, like the people who just want to like share something. So yeah, I don't really like that. But so yeah, recently the community has been a bit or somewhat stifling for me, just like these sorts of things that have been building up for like 2 years. And one of those things that has been sort of like on my mind is the fact that people call you a gatekeeper when you don't want to like share a pattern. And there are like a lot of like labels of gatekeeper that people use. Like if you want them to credit you, if they're using, or making something from your pattern, like people will call you a gatekeeper for that. If you don't want to tell them details, about your design, so like the number of foundation chains that you made, the type of stitch that you're using, the technique that you're using that you probably didn't find on YouTube, because like I know a lot of knitters and crocheters who make their own techniques, and like I've never seen it anywhere else, so it's very unique to their work. They'll call you a gatekeeper if you don't give them like measurements of your design. And I'm just like, bro, like most people have patterns, for their designs. And even if they don't, like if they're asking you, or if they don't want to tell you this information, like why are you expecting that? Like just because we are in a community doesn't mean you have to expect that from people. And it's not gatekeeping. Like people just, these designs are their babies. Maybe it's too complicated to explain to you how to make something. Maybe they're not comfortable with sharing this stuff with you, because there have been instances where I've shared this stuff, and then I see that this person has literally made the same thing that I've made, and then they're like selling commissions of it without crediting me or asking me for permission if they could like remake to sell or whatever. And yeah, I know a lot of people are like, well, you don't need to give permission. It's like not against the law, for them to do that, but it's just like a courtesy thingy, to be nice, and if some people say, no, you can't remake something, then don't remake it. And no, they're not gatekeeping if they're asking you not to do that. It is their design, and it doesn't matter how, complicated the design is. It doesn't matter if it looks simple to you, because, like, from all the patterns that I've written, even the most simplest one, like the checkmate vest, like that stuff takes forever. So in my opinion, you should always respect, what the designer is saying. And if you're asking that designer if you can remake something or whatever, I'm guessing that you do care. So most people who have asked me, so I am actually okay with people remaking things that I don't have a pattern on, but if I do have a pattern on said item, I do ask that person to buy the pattern rather than remaking it. It also takes out a lot of guesswork, so I'm like basically doing the work for you. But anyways, that's kind of like the policy that I have. And so a lot of people have been extremely nice to like reach out and ask me, and I'll either say yes or no depending on, if I have a pattern for said item. And yeah, most people have been really nice, but I've had some friends who have not had such nice interactions with people, or there will be some people who just blatantly like copy one of their designs and then, no crediting. And even if you do credit, like just like out of being nice, out of like courtesy's sake, like you should probably still ask the designer. You should ask the designer, So yeah, those are some of the things that I have issues with recently. And if you're like curious about, what the difference between copying and inspiration is, Haley, aka Softly Made Cottage, has a great infographic on this. And then one more thing that I wanted to talk about that has to do with like the community and then like copying versus inspiration is the fact that how a lot of things found on like aggregate like inspiration websites like We Heart It and like Pinterest are now labeled as the famous Pinterest dress, or like they call it the Pinterest inspired blank, or even like if a influencer or like a famous person is like wearing something, they'll call it like the Emma Chamberlain like vest, and it's Erica Maisha's work. I think that's how you say her name. Or like they'll call it like the Harry Styles cardigan, but the Harry Styles cardigan was J.W. Anderson's pattern, who they so kindly, shared this pattern with everybody. But, it would be nice to kind of like trace back like who actually made this item, and like see if they're okay with you making a tutorial on it. Because I know Erica probably isn't okay with people making tutorials of her vests and her like basically her work on YouTube, but I've seen so many tutorials of this like on YouTube. And like vlogging, making something inspired, like that's fine, but in my opinion, you should still do a bit of research. It's not hard to like figure out like where exactly this influencer or famous person or like random person, like whose work they're wearing. Basically, it's really not that hard, and if you don't know, then I guess that's another discussion for next time. But yeah, and but yeah, like other things on like the Pinterest inspired thing, like since when was Pinterest an aesthetic? Because I've never seen Pinterest as an aesthetic. Like I found so many aesthetics on Pinterest, like cottagecore, alternative. There's so many different types of aesthetic, like clowncore, so many sections, not just like works made by fiber artists, but also like food style books like ACGs, etc. Like Pinterest is an aggregate inspiration website, basically an aggregate. It's basically just everybody posts different things on Pinterest with and without credit, and everybody just attributes the source. The source, it's Pinterest. It's like searching up on Google like a specific like article name or whatever, and then you don't even like credit the person who wrote the article. You're just gonna be like, my source is Google. Like, how ridiculous does that sound? I don't know, it sounds stupid to me, but yeah, people will literally just say Pinterest inspired, or like, the famous Pinterest blank, and I just have issues with that. Like, I know some people are just like, why do you have issues with that? Why are you thinking about it in such a way? There are arguments for everything that I'm saying. Everything that I'm saying are also just my opinions. But yeah, I just think it's ridiculous. In general, I just wish, or I just hope that people will be more kinder to others, like on the internet. Like, I know that you're being protected by a screen, so you can like say these things, and then or other people are being protected by a screen. So like, it's not like somebody's like yelling or like saying this to our faces, but it's still something that like bothers me, or like it's still something that I like very much like have feelings about, and like stuff that caustic words that are written out, like I can like hear that in my head. Like I can imagine that person saying it to my face, and it's not nice. So don't do it. And don't tell people that they're gatekeeping when they don't want to share information that you want. Because, not everybody has to do that. They're not obligated to say yes. And if you think that they're obligated to say yes, then I'm sorry, but you're being an entitled piece of crap. So don't do it. Don't do it. And please honor the designer's terms of use. That's very important. If they don't want you to make something from their pattern to sell, don't make something from their pattern to sell. And if you have issues with that, then don't buy their pattern. A lot of designers will actually list their terms of use. If they don't allow people to sell items made from their patterns, they'll list it, or they'll have a photo of it in the listing itself. So definitely just read through the entire listing, the description, look through the photos. And if you're unsure because you want to buy that pattern to sell something from, then just ask the designer. There's nothing wrong with asking them. You're not gonna know unless you ask. Yeah, and the same thing goes with recreations, because I know some people are not comfortable with other people creating their work, so just don't do it. And again, they are not gatekeeping if they're saying no. So this is gonna turn into a really long recording, so if I don't stop now, but that's kind of the thoughts that I have and the sorts of opinions that I have in the fiber arts community on Instagram. And like I said, I still love the community. I'm really thankful to be a part of it, and I'm really thankful of the people who have been supporting me ever since 2 years ago, because without some sort of an audience, without any mutuals, without any close friends that I've made on Instagram, I would obviously not be where I am right now. So I'm really thankful for that. But I also do still have my grievances, which I have said now.